everybody. 7:36 a.m. November 13th, 2017. Alright, I just wanted to jump on here and give a couple of you, or a bunch of you, that were asking about this invest or disturbance area we have out in the Atlantic. Right off the bat, we don't really have to worry about this too much. This is not going to be a threat to the U.S. It is taking that same exact type of movement that we saw our last invest that started out right in the middle of the ocean. And it went straight up and then out into the east and was a non-issue, at least for the U.S. Now, as far as the other disturbances go that are not marked on the charts yet, we may see one. And the reason I say that is because of the groupings I'm beginning to see here in the Caribbean. Now, there is a chart here I have for you. This is our current warm water, or a tropical index, or intensity index, which means it gives you the favorability of what areas could cause tropical storms at this time. And you can see right here, it's that South Caribbean all the way up parallel to Jamaica area that we would have to watch out for. And then when comparing it to, if I can find it, there we go. If you compare it to this area, that would be where my mouse is circling here. So you can see how there are storms coming out of this area. We got some stuff coming up right around here. Now, we were following also a disturbance that was showing up on tropical tidbits that seemed to want to form here, move up by Jamaica, and then it would kind of move to the east in this direction. And that looks like it's still being recognized by charts, but not as much as it was showing up in the last week or so. But just by looking at this area, it does look to be pretty active. It looks like some of this stuff wants to hang up. You could see shear winds pulling this to the right and then to the east. And we also have a system that they're watching that has to do with the middle of the U.S. Now, I'm going to show that to you here on Tropical Tidbits. Let's actually use the other chart. This chart's hard to look at sometimes. We'll get our colors back. There we go. Now we can switch to, we'll start with the GFS. And we're going to be looking right around this area. There's going to be possibly some severe weather in the middle of the country in the next day or two. And that has to do with that right there. So check that out. You can, as you move forward right around here, you can see like that cut right there. That might be dry air being pulled through. But this is a big dip in the jet stream, bringing cooler air to the area. And depending on the temperatures in the northeast, guys, this could be a snowmaker here. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. We also want to see what's going on down in the South Caribbean here with that low pressure, because if you remember, we had a very tight system that formed and it was kind of bouncing back and forth, and it came up towards Jamaica here, and then it wanted to either go west, and there were some situations that took it over Cuba, and then maybe a northern approach with a possible nor'easter meeting with, sorry, it's early in the morning, another storm here. That would meet with it right at the northeast and cause some significant weather. So, let's see what the GFS has to say about the low. You can see it forming right there in the exact spot that we showed these warm water things. So you can tell that the favorability chart here with the warm water, they are fairly accurate, but again, we've had disturbances like we have now, the one that's way out here in the Atlantic Ocean, and this is it here. It's 30% over 48 hours and 50% over 5 days. So this may form, it may not form, but it's really going to be a threat to areas of, once again, the UK and Ireland. They may be dealing with this, but as far as the US goes, guys, I don't think this is going to be an issue. We're winding down in the season. It is kind of adjusting. Much cooler water in the Gulf, cooler water in the north areas of north of Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, Cuba, and then the Bahamas. So it's all getting cooler down in this area. So if anything's going to form, it's going to form where that warm water is still, which is right in this area. So you can see this forming here, and then you can tell the direction it takes. This one brings it into the Pacific Ocean. So that obviously would be a non-issue for the U.S. We can switch over to the CMC first. Back it up. Move forward here, and you can see that the CMC now, that's the system. Here's that system I'm talking about that'll bring the severe weather to the U.S. So we're going to talk about that later this afternoon. And that's a big system. Look at that. That's the size of that thing. We talked about that being the size of the U.S. in our last update a couple days ago. And you see that low. It pops up and disappears now. So the CMC, which is usually more dramatic than the other charts, is actually not talking or not recognizing this anymore. That could be it right there, being pulled up into a stretch of pressure that becomes a system after leaving the northeast. That's pretty interesting. You can see that comes right off the northeast here and then becomes a system for a little bit before the jet stream and the different water temperatures widen that base and make it a very wide low system. So again, not an issue for the US, so that's a good thing. But I would pay some attention to this system that's passing through the middle, because any sort of quick weather, severe weather that's whipping through in these areas, very flat land, while we're dealing with tornado situations and stuff like that. So always want to be aware of that stuff, and you always want to be aware of our jet stream this time of year, because that is going to determine when these systems pass over, especially these areas. You want to, Chicago, all these areas here that are just very prone to snow when that jet stream dips and it also meets with a system. You can clearly see there's a dip in the jet stream here. So this may bring some significant weather here. We're going to keep an eye on it. Let's move through the rest of this, what we got here today. Alright, and we're not seeing any of that disturbance down here. So right now it's just the GFS that really shows that, which is kind of interesting because it's usually the exact opposite right there. So again, may not be an issue, we don't know. But to leave you guys, before I leave you guys, we had a major earthquake in Iraq, Iran, 330 people dead as of whenever this post was. This is the only one I could find that I figured I was allowed to post, guys. A lot of people are getting copyright issues these days on YouTube. I don't know what they're trying to do. I usually change the settings on my Google search when I'm looking for pictures to reusable, reshareable, that type of thing. And more times than none, guys, they won't give you a single picture that you are legally allowed to use. So it's really unfortunate. But I just brought this chart up because these are buoys. Now, for those of you that don't know, it's the National Buoy Data Center. So you can click any one of these buoys and get actual data from that part of that buoy specifically. You can get a picture of it and that type of thing. Now, the reason I'm showing this to you not really has much to do with the earthquake in Iraq, but for those of you that like to follow earthquakes and stuff like that, when something happens in the ocean and the earth underneath moves, it causes a change in the surface of the water, and that's what could begin things like tsunamis. So if you ever come to this chart here and you see any of these blinking, you would really want to check that out, because that could be a possible tsunami. That means there was a change in the depth of the ocean or the surface of the ocean in a fairly quick manner. And then if you watch them over time and there is somewhat of a tsunami, you can see the buoys start to bounce on this chart as that wave moves across the ocean. So just a little cool chart for some of you that are into this kind of thing. I very much am. I've been starting to click on these buoys and like read their data and stuff like that. And it's very interesting how much detail you can get from those buoys every day. Alright, so let's see if we have anything else we're going to talk about really quick. That looks to be it. Now, just keep an eye. If those of you that are following this stuff and watching it closely, keep an eye on the action going on in the Caribbean here. That's a lot of stuff going on. These are a lot of storms. Again, the GFS has that grouping of storms forming right around here, but now it says it's going to go into the Pacific Ocean. So let's hope that happens. Let's hope it stays in the ocean and does nothing. And that's going to be it for now, guys. I will talk to you this afternoon. Sorry for the quick update. Have to get going. That's about it. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.